The year after I made the Olympic team, I taught school. Actually, I taught in Raleigh for a year and realized that even though I loved to teach, classroom teaching wasn't quite right for me. And I wanted something that would allow me to do a little teaching, but about something that I dearly loved, and that was running and how people could benefit so much by doing it. So I decided to open a store, and I actually opened it prematurely because there really wasn't enough business in 1973 to generate a profit. And so my store, called Fidipides, was the first specialty running store in the country, and in order to make it work and pay the rent, I had to do other things like put on races and put on training programs. And I was asked to teach a course in beginning running. 22 enrolled, and none of them had been doing any running at all, so it was truly a beginner's group. Well, I went out with them on every single workout, and I knew that if I didn't put some walking in there regularly, they weren't going to make it through the course, and they wouldn't become customers of my store. So I listened for huffing and puffing. That was the first rule that has become a rule in our groups. And at the end of the 10-week class, all 22 finished either a 5K or a 10K. But what really amazed me was that there were no injuries within 10 weeks among these beginners. I mean, bare beginners. And I realized that the walk breaks were certainly the key to that. And so I started evolving the program from that point. And now I have heard back from over 500,000 runners. But the whole force of this is to bring people into running who never had a prayer of being able to do it if they ran nonstop. And the anthropologists tell me that our ancestors didn't design us for nonstop running for long distances, that they are absolutely certain, due to bone structure, archaeological evidence, that our ancestors ran a very small amount and mostly walked wherever they went. And as a result, my method turns out to be going back to our roots. Well, it's a very complex emotional feeling that I get out of that. We did not know what was going on. And so the morning after the incident, a group of 4 of us from our suite went out for a run on a back gate, and usually there was just a 1 guard out there. Well, this morning there were 10 guards there with submachine guns, and so we realized that something was going, but we figured it might have been some IOC dignitary going through the gate. As soon as we got through the gate, there was a horde of people on the other side, and they were reporters, and they started firing questions at us. And we had to ask them what is going on, because there was no news inside. So we spent a 5-mile loop running around figuring out, are they going to close the entrance? And one of the runners that I was running with was my brother. He sort of stowed away in the village, sleeping on the balcony. And so it became our conspiracy on that run to see if we could get him back in the village, because he didn't have credentials and the rest of us did. We ran through the motor pool and got back, but from that point on, every hour or two there was something that was going on, and a lot of rumors and you know, things that just really didn't turn out to be, but they'd rise you up and then let you fall. The movie Prefontaine, this label Prefontaine, actually has a Jeff Galloway character in it, and the character was true to what went on during that period, in that our coach, Bill Bowerman, had a team meeting, and he wanted to get people's emotions out there on it. Did a great job of doing that. But one of the athletes on our team actually said something like, should we really continue to compete after athletes have been killed? And I jumped on my feet because I had to. It says, if you stop the games, then they win. and several other episodes have reiterated that whole feeling. The Boston bombing, the Trade Center bombing, plane crash and so forth. Anyway, the gist of what we went through showed the power of the Olympic spirit, and people came together. The athletes came together, and while it was a sad time, it was also a wonderful bonding time. This was our 50th running of the Peachtree Road Race on July 4th, and I'm very proud to have been the very first winner. I was the very first person to come across the line, but 5 years later, after traveling the world literally, competing, I came back to Atlanta to live, and the race director was moving out of town and asked me to join the team to manage the race as assistant director. And in those 3 years, we grew the race from 1,200 to 12,000. And it was all about bringing together a team of folks that could help make this happen. One of the first people that the race director and I went to see was a young executive at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, a guy named Jim Kennedy. And this was his first job of responsibility that he had. He was in charge of promotions for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Well, he later became chairman of the board of Cox Enterprises as he moved his way up. But he saw the possibility of Peachtree and what it could do for the newspaper and for Cox Enterprises, and he made it happen. And we brought in other team players too, and because of what Atlanta is, we actually got a head start on what road races could become, and we became sort of a landmark for other road races. So to answer your question, what can road race organizations do, and sponsors of those, realize first that the force of running today is people who are getting off the couch and getting into running. And they're finding that running empowers them better than anything else in life. And if you can provide an event that celebrates that, then you're going to have a successful event. And then if you get other sponsors to come in and help your efforts, then it grows even more quickly. But it really does. These events change people's lives. For every person that enters an event, these people affect 20 others to improve their health behaviors in a positive direction. A number of studies show that. Making the Olympic team unexpectedly it was the very first one. I had done my homework, but I had no indication of whether I was at that level. I started out in last place in the 10K and moved my way up to second and qualified, and that is it's just was a totally exhilarating moment. And then a week later, to help my very good friend Jack Batchelor, who has spent his career at NC State as an extension professor, but Jack was trying to qualify for the team, so I paced Jack through the race. And we entered the stadium, there was only one spot left. I ran with him to the finish and dropped back at the finish so he could be the official qualifier. But I have to tell you that overall, a little bit above those two experiences is to be with my family members who all run and to share with them what they're getting out of this and to go to events together. Of course, I'm the training consultant for the Run Disney events, and so we do a lot of those together. But to have this bonding is a very powerful reinforcement to the family structure. And finally, the one race that, if I forget all the other races, that I will remember is in the 100th anniversary of the Boston Marathon in 1996. I ran with my father, who was 75 years old. I'm 74 now, but that was going to be his last marathon. And I ran every step of the way with him. And afterwards, people came up and asked him how he did, and he says, well, I would have run a lot faster if it wasn't for him. And I never disagreed with that, but what a wonderful treat to share with your father a marathon and the Boston Marathon.
Eddie Wooten, Running Shorts, Greensboro.com.